Peace and respect to you all. Welcome to Demolish Doctrine, the beginning of the end of religion. Today's guest, NokaSuchi, the raging atheist from his new channel, The Rage. Would you tell everybody what you're doing over there, man?
Hey, what's up? Not too much. Forgetting to mute my mute the live stream like usual. What's up, y'all? Doing pretty good.
Tell everybody what's going on with The Rage nowadays.
Yeah, we changed the channel name. I was a little hesitant with doing it because of my experience doing it the first time. But I think the channel's really starting to represent what I wanted to represent. It's not a channel so much about me anymore, although I still have all my edited content there, but it's becoming more and more about conversation. And, you know, me and Ali's Thursday night streams are becoming more and more about an interview stream. I do want to bring back the old element of having open room, dumpster fires, whatever they were, open discussions. It's been hard to get Christians to come on again, but yeah, I really think that the channel's starting to do what I want it to do. Apostate Alliance is really great. Ali is doing her thing with Nathaniel and Divine Disbelief on Tuesday nights with the literary secular literary circle. So yeah, it's not just me anymore, and I think that we really started to open up the side chats. So hopefully more people will start to realize they can come back and be their obnoxious selves, and we're not going to ban, we're not going to kick you out and hide you like we used to. Really been talking to my mods about that. Now we're not going to take just blatant fucking slurs and stuff like that, but come in, be your obnoxious selves, please. We're going to really try to open it up and allow people to feel like they can talk in the side chat.
Perfect. What's that? That's your spiel. That's it.
Yeah. I do have some really personal stuff coming out. And
what are you doing, man?
With personal videos, you're always hesitant of revealing that. It's stuff that I've talked about, but it's really going in detail. I did go on Grumpy Old Dude's channel yesterday, and that will be public probably 5 minutes ago. So and I talk about it a little bit. So there will be some really personal videos coming out probably within the next week or so. They're on Patreon already. So I'm proud of that, and at the same time, you always get really hesitant with those videos, especially delving into a past that I left a long time ago. But I think it's important, and me and Grumpy Old Dude was talking about, for people like us that have lived lives that most haven't, to speak about that and not run and shy away from it, and shed light on it and show how you can change and you can become a different person if you choose to. So I am really excited to put those videos out and really kind of back up some of this stuff. I show brands that I've received in parts of my body that I'm not usually showing because I'm fat, but I show people what I'm talking about. So I am pretty excited about it. And what's up, Gio Sam?
Yeah, I think as we grow and experience things in life, and it changes us, and I think all of us want to be better people. All of us want to be more empathetic, more understanding, more caring, more giving, more loving. I think we all want that. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of our problem as a worldwide society today is that we're just scared. We're scared to give of ourselves. We feel like, you could compare it to money. You could say, well, I've got this amount of money. It's barely enough for me in this situation. I can't give any away. But that also applies to emotional states. Where a person is strong, they can give away their strength, and being supportive of others. And I see you doing that a lot for people. I see you defending people with real passion and empathy. And I think that's because you're strong in that way, that you feel like you're able to do that.
Well, yeah, I think it's made me fearless, like, of people, of humans, and what they might say or think about me. And And I've noticed that about people, like because most people are sheep that they follow along in the herd, and anybody that kind of steps outside of that herd mentality and isn't agreeing with the subset of the culture that it's surrounded by, well, those people are ostracized. So yeah, I think that when you become outspoken, especially like I am against religion, and you do it in real life, like you don't hide it in real life, like everybody I know knows what I do here on YouTube, then you're going to have problems from that. You're going to be pushed outside of that herd. So and I do think that people do fall into the same kind of thought patterns of the people around them. You know, they it's very easy to believe, you know, immigrants are taking all of your jobs if everybody around you is talking about immigrants taking your jobs. So I mean, I think we do fall into that mentality.
Tell me, other than having a child, because I know how huge that is, what do you think? What events in your life have really caused you the most self-reflection, the most growth, the most empathy for others?
Self-reflection was definitely prison. I don't think you can have more time to self-reflect. It was more of a it wasn't a very positive self-reflection though. To really like start changing, probably the moment that I tore the rebel flag off my wall when I was 16 years old, I think was the moment that I really I made a conscious decision to change that thinking. And it came from one particular person that I had met, or several really. He was on my football team, but we just become really, really good friends. And I couldn't justify that hate anymore. And so I think that was a defining moment of where I really looked at myself and said, hey, you know, like the path I was falling down wasn't the right one. Unfortunately, it didn't help too much because I was still extremely homophobic, and I was still a stupid ass kid that was willing to pretty much do anything. So I think later in life, after I had lived probably a life most people don't really get, I stayed outside of conventional norms my whole life. I never really tried to get a bank account or a good career. I never really thought I'd have children. I was told playing football in high school that I'd never have kids. So from an injury that I'd received. So like, you know, I just never really gave a damn until I started reading books, and like serious books, not just fictional books and shit like that, but like historical books, rereading the Bible and looking at that again. Really kind of changed the direction of my thinking. And I was able to look at myself and say, I don't have to be a fuckwit. But it was ultimately the birth of my daughter that I think changed everything for me, to where I couldn't really be a douchebag anymore because it wasn't about me anymore. It was about her. And I mean, it wasn't immediate either. I mean, it took me a couple years to really come out of myself and be the dad that I should have been. Even though I was there from the very beginning, I didn't really know how to be a dad. Never really thought I would be a dad. So yeah, it was probably like a couple years after she was born that I really just grasped onto humanism, really started to see that it wasn't all about me, but about the future and about the human race as a whole. That's probably when I became passionate about it.
The best advice I ever accepted on fatherhood was, it's a child. Don't expect them to act like an adult. Never lie or exaggerate. And once you say something, don't change your mind.
Well, yeah, like the first 2 years of her life, all I really did was play WoW. I didn't really know how to be a dad, and for like 4 years, shit, 4 years at least, that's all I did was play WoW. My girlfriend, the mother of my daughter, didn't want me to work. and it was really weird. And I wanted to work, but I just I just got trapped in a while, and I was cool with it for some reason. And that's all I did for a long time. So that's what I'm saying. Like, I really had to just grow up and change my mentality and go out and really actually become a citizen of society and change everything, because I couldn't no longer be a social drifter, willing to move here or there. Where, I mean, I've been all over the place. I've never really buckled down and had an anchor anywhere, until my daughter was born, and now my anchor's here, and I really had to change everything. And I think the activism from like protesting environmental causes really just kind of, once she was born, I was able to really channel that into a more into a broader activism that eventually, like about 4 years ago, I decided to go public and really start talking to people.
You said that you'd had a rebel flag on your wall, and you were homophobic.
Yeah. The homophobia changed with Matthew Shepard. I've made videos about that shit though.
Mm-hmm. All of those ideas, would you say they were societal? Would you say they were religiously founded? Would you say they were personally founded? I'm not trying to get you to say bad things about your family or anything, but just generally speaking.
I think it was, just raised in North Carolina. Everybody's Southern Baptist, so I mean, it was just the way it was. Like, you didn't even really talk about it until, like, your parents. There goes my daughter messaging me on Facebook. I need to turn off. Facebook is turned off. Why is it doing that? Like, our dad would catch us like watching HBO after everybody going to bed, thinking that we'd be slick and shit, and just stuff like that is where you really saw it. It wasn't when I was growing up. You didn't see it in school, because I mean, if people were out doing it openly, they'd get their ass beat. I mean, that was just how it was back then down there. So, it really took like an extreme event for me to become aware of it. And I'd spoken, like, I'd actually grudgingly over time had become friendly with a gay dude, working with him when Matthew Shepard was killed. But having that extreme event and having somebody that I knew that I could associate with it,
right?
I mean, it took that for me to change, because I think it was cultural. It's just everybody down there was like that. I don't know if it's still like that. I have it sensed that maybe it is, because I still have a lot of them douchebags on my Facebook. But I mean, I think it's cultural, and I'm not sure if it's because everybody's Southern Baptist or if it's just how everybody is.
Yeah, I sometimes wonder if the religion cultures the person, or the person picked the religion. You know what I'm saying? Are they just like that anyway?
Well, yeah, and where I lived, it's very rural. Like, if Callan was here, she could tell you, because she's from pretty much the area, so she knows exactly what I would be talking about right now. It's very rural. Like I always said, there's like more cows than people. So a bunch of rich ass white dudes, white kids. I mean, there was a few black people there, but they had their own little part of Moxville, as we called it, and it was very segregated. And, that segregation was broken playing sports. So, that's how I was able really to just break out. I was telling old grumpy dude, like, I think I was being groomed for the KKK, because they're down there and they're in the woods everywhere. I mean, I'm sure several people that's on my Facebook are in the KKK. They don't pronounce it openly. It's still hidden, just like it always has been, Right. So I think I was being groomed for the KKK, and I just woke up to it because I had my running back was one of my best friends. It's like, you can't hate somebody that you've come to know as a human being, and I think that's what's required. And sadly, human beings are afraid to overcome their fears and actually be approachable. Yeah, too often. True. Sometimes, I mean, we're all capable of it. We all can do it. It's just being put in the situation that's going to allow you to open yourself to do that.
I wonder how much of how positive it is when we, okay, I'll make an example. When we say Black Lives Matter, it's a truism. It's also true that all lives matter. And when we say Black Lives Matter, we're separating them and making them a distinct group. And it seems to me that at some level, that's prejudice within itself.
Well, the point of it, and I was a big activist for Black Lives Matter for a long time, for a while. And every movement has its extreme elements to it. I'm not gonna lie. There were extremists in that movement, of course. But what it comes down to is media doesn't cover the atrocities that are occurring on a daily basis. And now people have little computers that they carry around everywhere. It's getting captured more and more. The numbers are in. I mean, it's disproportionate per capita how many Black people were putting in prison compared to how many white people. A video was just recently leaked of the Black man being gunned down ruthlessly by 2 white men, and it took months for them to be convicted. It took for that video to be leaked for them to be indicted. They haven't been convicted yet. So when they were saying Black Lives Matter, they were basically screaming for help. They were screaming to be acknowledged that this is happening, and too many people doesn't believe that it is. And then when they come out with, well, all lives matter, well, then that's a protest against their protest. And
is that what started that? I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's the whole Blue Lives Matter, all lives matter. That's a protest against their protest, asking people to stop killing them. So it's very, very disrespectful and racist, and people don't understand that. And I've tried to explain that to people. Like, you don't understand that when you say that, you're being racist because you don't understand that movement. And I've had to explain that to people. Some people listen, some people learn, some people will never get it. And that's because they won't overcome their biases. But if they actually knew the stories, if they seen the kid playing in the playground, the cops roll up within 5 seconds, that kid is dead, kid with no gun, no weapon, just being Black, then you'd understand. But people are living in their bubbles and they don't understand.
I remember a time when a colloquial expression, a phrase was going around like driving while intoxicated. You remember what they used to say, driving while Black?
Oh yeah. And it's still a thing. Like, you know,
I bet it is.
I think almost every Black household in this country has that conversation with their children on how to behave around police officers.
Sure, and they better.
And still, sometimes even the ones that follow those rules still get gunned the fuck down. And people that deny it just deny reality. I mean, the numbers are all there. I mean, you don't trust me, just go look at it. It's all there. It's just that the mainstream media, and it's not just Fox News, it's all of them, don't cover the shit. And the only time they do is when there's so much outrage that they have to. It's really disgusting. And it's why, like, Trump's able to play on that, you know, because the media, nobody trusts the media anymore. They don't give accurate information. And it's very easy for Trump to sit on his bully pulpit and say enemy of the state, because a lot of people know that the media isn't giving them the truth.
Sure. Okay, so I want to switch gears a little bit.
Cool.
I want to get I want to ask you some questions about
I'm gonna smoke, so I'm gonna turn off my camera real quick.
Okay, that's fine, as long as you're not disappearing. Oh, that's a cool cartoon of you, bro.
Yeah, Geo Sam, man. Geo Sam
did that.
Yeah, Geo Sam hooked it up.
Awesome work, Geo. That's awesome work. I want to get into a little bit about your religious ideas when you were a religious person. Some of the things that brought you out of that. What you think was most influential in your becoming non-religious, ways that your life, personality, and relationships have changed, and things to that extent. So, would you, if you're willing to do that? And we didn't really talk about anything.
Oh no,
but,
yeah, I'm totally down.
Okay, cool. Would you describe how you looked at life and people when you were religious?
So I was like a different person back then. It's really hard for me to go back there. I'm gonna try to, because I was when I was like religious, when I was actually praying to God and I thought that God was listening. I was
Hmm.
16, 17 years old. And I was really hardcore addicted to drugs at that point. I would say around 17 years old. I had severed every ligament in my right ankle, and I was actually up here in Battle Creek visiting my mom on winter vacation, and we were down at a place called Full Blast playing Gus Macker guys, and only people in Michigan understand. But Gus Macker guys it's really good competition. So it was really good practice for me on my little vacation to stay warmed up, to be able to get back into the season. Well, I severed all the ligaments in my right ankle, and I had an option of getting Tommy John surgery, but it was brand new. And they didn't know if it would work. And my dad wasn't a rich man by any means. He's a lot better off now than he was back then. But we were surrounded by rich people, but we were by no means rich. So he decided not to take a surgery that might not work. Now, we all know now that Tommy John surgery does work. I could have probably played again, given a couple years of really tough rehabilitation and training. I could have probably gotten almost back to normal, but we didn't know that then. And I don't really fault my dad for that. But when they told me I'd never play sports again, I'd lost my shit. And that was my way out. That was my way to be whatever I wanted to be. And I just lost that. You know, my brother was basically a genius and never had issues in school. I was always distracted with the girls and shit, and I made C's just good enough to play sports, you know. So
You're not the only one ever did that.
I didn't really become interested in actually learning anything until I got out of prison and I went to college. But I remember, you know, because I got hooked on the pain pills that the doctors were giving me.
I was about to ask you.
And when they stopped giving me the pain medications, then I turned to street drugs, and we were already doing shit anyway. Like a lot of my friends had become crackheads. I never did, but I mean, you have a bunch of rich ass white kids, and I've talked about how the Mexican cartels were there pushing drugs.
Right.
I've talked about it openly. I actually talk about it a little bit more, I think, in some videos that's coming out. But really pushing some heavy drugs out into the little county I lived in. So that element was already there. We started taking a lot of acid. But I remember praying to God, like, you know, I'm not the Christian that I was raised to be, that I'm not, you know, why doesn't, you know, asking him to change me. And I never did. I never changed. Nothing ever happened. And I ended up going to prison. I ended up just fucking around so much that it landed me in prison. And I think that alone was when I saw that prayer just don't fucking work. You know, he's not going to be there for me at my toughest time when I needed him the most.
Right.
But I still wasn't able to really leave the Christian faith until I got to prison, and I was there and I was doing some horrible things, surrounded by horrible people, and they all believed in a God, whether it was Allah or the Christian God or the Jewish God. They all had a God, and they were all willing to do fucking horrible shit just like I was. And it was like,
Sure.
What does it even fucking matter? Right. So, I mean, that's probably when I first walked away from Christianity. But then I got into like Buddhism and Taoism and was introduced into my Native American. So it took a long time to actually become an atheist.
Back when you were very, very prejudiced, how much of that do you think was how people looked at Christian text, and how much do you think is that's a hard question. It's hard. It's almost impossible to answer. How much do you think that is like demanded by the text? I
think it's really an easy question to answer. If you look at the statistics, I think it's 47% of this country believes Genesis, and that this world is only 6,000 years old. I think that's a serious fucking problem. When at the last report, 29% of the country is now checking no when it comes to God. So if 47% of Christianity is saying that they believe the earth is only 6,000 years old, then I think that text means an awful lot to them.
Yeah, yeah, I have to agree with you. Funny thing is, I don't see that as a necessity of the text, but that's another matter. Um, okay, so you're growing up, you're in your formidable years. You end up in jail for a while. You notice that a lot of people in jail who have done any number of things, any variety of things, um, are religious. And I've never been in jail. I've never been in a prison, myself, and I don't have any real
Everybody
experience
finds
there.
God in prison. It's an old adage. If you don't have God before, you'll find God in.
I've always suspected that was the case. It seemed to me from other people's testimony that it's not necessarily true that they were a religious person when they committed or did not commit, depending
Oh, without a doubt.
whatever act.
I don't think that any of the things that they were doing would be considered Christian things, unless you look at it in a context of history, though, because Christians in the context of history have been able to be very violent. So it's really in the context of how you're looking at it. I think, but like in a prison, you're backed against the wall. I talk about it in the videos that I'm going to be putting it out, because like you get into survivor mode, you're going to do shit that
Yeah.
you wouldn't do in normal life. So I mean, that's there's context behind all of that. So it really was just a reflection on just the God issue. Like, it really doesn't matter when some of some of the worst people in society, let's put it that way. I mean, if you're in prison, usually you've done some pretty bad shit. I was in prison because I deserved to be there. And if they all believe the same thing, like, why does it matter? Like, this is like, I had fun with SJ yesterday talking about morality, because it's like your objective morality is very, very subjective, because everybody shares this belief, but they all have a different sense of morality and are all capable of very different things.
Yeah, so really they've selected it themselves, and that's subjective.
Exactly. Yeah. Like I was like, I'm new to this argument, but it seems apparent to me.
It's pretty obvious on its face, I think, to anyone who wants to look at it honestly. And I think most religious folks are not willing to look at it honestly because they can't. That would break their religion. Yeah. Okay, so you said something to the effect of I want to hit, there's not enough time.
I have all day, man, so take as long as you need.
There's never enough time. First of all, I just find you very, very interesting person, and I think that you're very, very talented, and I think you're strangely honest. Now, that doesn't mean you always were that way,
Oh no, yeah, I think you have to be a very, very dishonest person at one point to become a really, really honest person. And trust me, like, being an honest person is not a good thing in today's society.
It's harder.
Yeah. People don't like honesty. They want you to deceive them. They want you to feed their bubble. And I like to blow bubbles up. So it's not been like, I live a fairly solitary life. I'm really hoping my daughter doesn't turn out to be like I am. I hope she's a better human. But
don't we always hope that? Yeah.
I admit that, I have a lot of faults, but yeah, I do. My one thing is to be honest about everything, and that's based upon my perception. So I can be wrong. Like, I often tell people, like, I read so many books so fast for about 4 or 5 years that, and a lot of those books were like conspiracy theory books. And a lot of those books were like alternative history books. A lot of those books were real historical books. And I get the shit confused sometimes. Like, shit gets crossed in my brain because I read so much. I need to read more now. That would probably help me out a lot.
I don't think that alternative history is, not 100% of the time, is unjustifiable, but
crazy shit about Jesus, man. I ain't gonna lie.
Go ahead, hit it, man. I want to hear it.
Well, I mean, I read all the conspiracies about him. Like, for one, he was a gay dude. For one, he wasn't killed. That he had a twin brother that was killed, and he actually married Mary Magdalene. They had a child. He had married Mary Magdalene and had a child with Mary Magdalene before he was crucified. She went to Egypt, and that was the Holy Grail. I think that's probably the most popular one.
It's pretty popular, yeah.
I've read them all, like the three pillars of Jerusalem and how there were three messiahs roaming around at the same time of Jesus. I read them all, dude. Like I was so fascinated with just the topic of it because I just didn't believe it anymore. So I wanted to read all of the different narratives. And so I think that it actually harmed me once I first started making videos. I go back and watch some of my old videos. I'm like, ooh, I was pretty stupid.
Well, that's good. That means you're growing.
Oh yeah,
you can look back at something of your past and go, well, that was wrong.
Yeah, I think it's why Christians don't like to talk to me too much anymore. It's really hard to get Christians on the channel again anymore because it's not as easy for them.
Well, depending on your definition of Christian, I've enjoyed every conversation I've had with you.
Yeah,
you know?
well, yeah, like I get so there's this misconception about me. I think that I just hate Christianity, and I don't. Like I really enjoy positive Christians. I don't know where I stand on SJ. Yet I just don't. I don't have enough information. I've had fun with her, but I don't have enough information on her. But if I don't like you, or if I have like a real problem with the things that you're promoting, then I'm a dick, and people don't like that. Like, they want you to show some level of respect for their idiocy. And I'm not that dude. I just never.
I'm not that dude. I just can't do it, dude. If you're willing to say something stupid like, "My God selected a small group of Bronze Age desert nomads to tell the truth to, and nobody else," and then he had them go and murder a bunch of folks that they were the neighbors of. Which, if that were true, people would noticed it. Like if I wrote a fictional story right now and say your house was number 222 and I said, and I'm living in 221 and I went and murdered the people in 223, you'd be like, no, you didn't. Like I talked to them yesterday, dude. What are you talking about?
Yeah, exactly. And so, I have that reputation, but a lot of the like Christians that I brought onto my channel are like hate mongers. And if they're not hate mongers, they're possible pose. Like people don't understand how I can like you and I don't like Sky Out. Is and I've seen like Christian reactions to you, and that's one of the reasons why I love you, because they don't know how to take it. And I would much rather have somebody that authentically believes what they believe and have a conversation with me about that than somebody just putting out a bunch of bullshit they've been either indoctrinated with, or two, don't really believe, but they're trying to get some kind of sway on this social media platform that they're on. Right. I'm going to reject those things like soundly. I would much rather have a conversation with you, or with Messenger before all the bullshit started happening, because he has a different outtake on Christianity and he actually really believes it. I enjoyed those conversations, as we became friends because of those conversations.
Yeah, I think it's hilarious and ironic that you can get a Christian to say something like, we need to make everyone on the planet Christians. And then their text says, as point, time goes on and the time gets near, there'll be less and less believers.
At that point, you're saying exactly what Islam is saying. We need to convert all the unconverted. We need a worldwide caliphate. Yeah, I mean, and really, I mean, if Jesus was real, I know you believe in him, Richard, but like if Jesus was real, or if God was real, why didn't he just do it? Why?
Do what?
Why isn't everybody just already a Christian?
Exactly. For one thing, it would defeat the prophecy.
Well, yeah,
if that happened, the Bible would be false.
Why need a prophecy to be fulfilled if you're an all-powerful God that could have seen everything from the very beginning? Why all the drama? Why send your one begotten son? I would never send my daughter to go be tortured, mutilated, crucified, to prove a point, or to change whatever.
I'll tell you what, if it can be justified, it better be well justified.
Well, yeah, I would hope so. I would hope so, but it all depends on the interpretation. We kind of got into it. There's a way to interpret the New Testament that Jesus is half alien, the entire time that UFOs are coming. They talk about clouds. Jesus steps into a cloud. I mean, there's ways to interpret these texts into whatever you want them to be.
Sure.
So that's why I try to break it down word for word and just have fun with it.
I think if the book has any value whatsoever, and I believe it does, and you know that, and I think that all the ancient religious stories do have the same amount of value, then what it's describing is us being allowed to be ourselves for a very, very long amount of time. But right before we kill ourselves off, either by natural disaster or accident, whether we do it or the earth does it, that we're essentially, our butts are pulled out of the fire at the last minute. And that's what we're actually saved from. Where Christians normally espouse, oh, you're being saved from Satan. What it says is you're being saved from the second death, which I can understand why they interpret it that way. But the second death, from the way I read it, is death of your physical body, because your environment, you can't live in the environment, is what I think is actually being described. Now, whether that's like a super volcano or global warming or the sun explodes, all that we can get into details and discuss. But I think the overview is exactly that.
Well, yeah, I mean, so yeah, I get where you're coming from. And I can see how you interpret the Bible the way that you do. I've actually written papers on I think similar interpretations to yours, based upon actual text. I did that shit for fun when I actually went to college. I partied my way out of college. I wasn't there too long, but no, I as it's one of the things that I enjoy about you is you actually believe what you believe, so you'll battle for it. And I don't really have to question if you're being genuine or if you're trying to set me up for a trap. You're just being Richard. To where in most of my interactions with Christians, and I think most people can see, if you go back into the playlist, because they just don't happen very much anymore, that most Christians just aren't that way. They'll feed you a bunch of bullshit and like literally will relate your morality to having sex with animals. And then when you call them out for it, they're like, well, I didn't say that. And I'm like, you clearly did. And then you have to search through hours of footage to find out where they did and show them that they did. And then, oh yeah, like I never said I didn't say that. Like, who am I talking to here? So
short-term memory loss patient, apparently.
Yeah, I mean, I smoke weed. I understand short-term memory loss, but have a reason for it at least. Like I forget a thought all the time. Like it's one of the reasons why I'm glad I have Allie now, because she can kind of point me to where I lose my thoughts. But I don't know. Yeah, it's one of the things I find refreshing. And it's one of the things I kind of miss about having those conversations with Christians, because I think it's exposing that about at least this element of the online Christian is, I think, what's vital, because I don't think that they truly represent what Christianity should be in a secular world. Well, I have some issues with progressive Christians, but I think ultimately people like God is great. People like that Christian vlogger, they're what this world needs. I think that they probably need to go a few steps farther to really combat the negative narratives. But on the flip side of that, those negative narratives are an actual accurate decryption, translation depiction of what the Bible says. So it's I've always had this thing, like, if you're going to be a Christian, be a true Christian. You're a true Christian to what you believe. But if you're going to believe like this evangelical belief, then believe it, and make it easier for me to find you so I can combat against you, because to me, that's dangerous. And I think that people are starting to come awake to that. I mean, Trump's done some shit that's really, really obvious, manipulating the playing the religious card politically, that I think hopefully more people are becoming aware of just how fine this balance we've been walking as a country is, and we need to make some fucking decisions.
Of course, you know that I would argue that although the translation, no matter how literal the translation is from the original stories and texts, that the view of it, the context of it, isn't necessarily the best context. After all, it's not even consistent. I think I could write better a very, very long story than Christians are describing in the Old and New Testament, where where it just flip flops back and forth constantly between ideas.
The Bible is written horribly. You have a problem when you have so many different people trying to write a thing, and so yeah, I would agree. Like this, just as a story writer, I would hope that they could write a little bit better back then. But I understand, writing was something new, probably.
It wasn't that new. I mean,
yeah, you think
human brains weren't that new.
You think that if you were inspired by the all-powerful God, you could write a little bit better. I'm just saying.
You could at least be consistent.
And that's always my question. Right? So, I'm in your hot seat, but like if Jesus is the Son of God, why do we only have writings from like Paul and all these different people and not Jesus himself? Like, was the Son of God illiterate? I mean, not actual writings though.
Yeah, you might actually have one book.
Which one is that?
The original name of Ecclesiastes was the book of the preacher. But the only person that the Bible calls the preacher would be Jesus. Yeah.
Never heard that one. I don't know.
And it sounds very, very Buddhism, actually. It's all about detachment and it's all about like trying to do things that are actually useless, and then a growth cycle that happens because you realize that was useless. Well, wait a minute. That was useless. Wait, my thought about that being useless was useless. And it keeps going on like that.
I used to be somewhat of a Buddhist. I was like an American Buddhist. I read some books and thought I was a Buddhist, and then I thought I was a Taoist. But I always thought of it as like something of this peaceful religion, and I'm sure it is. I'm sure that there are a lot of peaceful Buddhists out there, but I know that in research I saw that it's like any other religion, and it can be utilized for great harm. I was very surprised with that because I always had this like misconception of Buddhism and what Buddhism was capable of and what you could be capable of as this true peaceful Buddhist. And it's just like with the rest of humanity, you're capable of quite a lot, So I don't know. There's just a little aside. You mentioned Buddhism, and my brain went there.
Well, I think in all cases, including Buddhism, the practitioner should be able to admit they can't perform the practice perfectly. And they should be able to admit there's only one who ever does, and that's the hero of the story. So it's kind of like saying, who is Buddhism really for? Well, it's for Buddha.
Yeah, I mean, which one though?
The first one.
Yeah, I mean, there's just it's very complicated, and it's why I don't really do too many Buddhism videos. I think I've covered like sexual molestation and some Buddhist monks, monasteries, but I've really stayed away from it just because once you get into the nuance of the actual religion, it's very complicated and just kind of like a headache. Like if you're used to Christianity, it's a different monster because there's a lot of discussion about which is the real first Buddha and which is not. It's just it's a headache.
Well, would you entertain questions, compliments from the side chat, whatever they have for you? Would you do that for a minute?
Oh yeah, man. Yeah, it's rare when I'm on this side of the interview.
That's funny, right?
Yeah, I need to do this.
Yeah, so
chill.
If you guys have always had something that bugged you that you wanted to ask NokaSuchi, now's the time to take advantage of that. If you have something for me in the way of a thought, objection, whatever you have, I would entertain that for a few minutes. But I'm going to have to wrap this up. Although I think Nok and I could just go all day without any real stitch.
I don't mind. SJ is going to be streaming with G-Man, and I'm interested to see if she mentions me and if she does his reaction, because I was trolling.
I just can't even imagine why she'd agree to that.
Oh, they've been hanging out a lot. no. I mean, she's hanging out with Godless Girl now. You know, funny thing, you know, like I'm gonna have. I've invited Godless Girl and SJ back onto the channel for Seeing Red. Hopefully in the next couple weeks. But she went on SJ's channel. I think it was yesterday, and she's like complimenting me. That's how it's nothing bad. But as she was complimenting me, she said I was dumb, and I'm like, oh, Godless Girl doesn't know how to give a compliment. I thought it was funny.
I actually watched that. It was you know, I am gaining much respect for Godless Girl, although she is maybe even purposefully unrefined. I like her honesty.
Yeah, she, you know, she's known as a Twitter troll, and I think she admits she likes to troll, and you know, I don't know all the details of her past or whatnot. She seems very honest, so yeah, I don't have too many issues with her. I just thought that was funny because it's like, for one, I'm assuming, because I don't know her well, but I'm assuming that to Godless Girl, if you don't know philosophy, you're dumb. And I would just have to, you know, Godless, you know, no, because just because you don't know a lot about philosophy doesn't mean you're dumb. It just means you don't know a lot about philosophy.
Well, I think there's a difference between a person accepting things that aren't true and keeping them because they never really looked at it.
Yeah,
because
well,
I think if you look into it enough, it'd be obvious that something's not true. And that has nothing to do with, you know, technical terms of philosophy. It's just good, solid thinking, you know?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I give me, come and talk to me about the Bible and we'll see who knows more. You know, come and talk to me about philosophy. You'll know more. I mean, it just doesn't make you dumb. Like you really, but I think that's just the way she is. It's funny. I thought it was funny, but like, if you're going to compliment somebody, don't in the same breath, diss on them.
It was a little weird. Yeah.
She's an interesting character. I'm not gonna lie. I don't know how the stream will go with Godless Girl and SJ, but she's an interesting character. So it should be fun.
All right, guys. I didn't see you type anything in the chat. I don't see any questions at all. I certainly hope that you enjoyed the show.
Book. They're going to see how much of an open book I am real soon because it's on Patreon now. It'll be out sometime next week. I probably get too personal. So
I think people respect that, actually. You know, it's like when you admit that you're wrong about something, or I admit that I'm wrong about something. There's something kind of sneaky and unrespectable about someone who won't ever admit they're wrong. You know?
Yeah. I was kind of trolling Sky out earlier, kind of about that. Like, you know, like nobody trusts you. You know, like nobody trusts you. And so yeah, no, I agree. It's sad, really. I think people are afraid to just be themselves, and you know, every human being's wrong sometimes. You know, like Skyot's never lost a debate. Well, if you've never lost a debate, Skyot, why'd you just take a break? You know, so like, just be honest. Like sometimes you're going to walk into a situation and you think that you're prepared for, and they're prepared better, and they catch you right from the beginning, and it's going to be a horrible situation. If you don't own up to that, you know, I think you saw that stream with Godless Girl. She's making a great point. Like if you're going to walk into a conversation with Darth Dawkins and do terrible, and you don't own up to it, I mean, that's on you. You know, show that integrity, show both sides of that human character, because I think ultimately when atheists do that, when we show that we're human beings, that we have the same, you know, qualities and the same ability to be human and unperfect as you Christians do. That's one of their things. We're not God. We're perfect. Hey, we're the same thing. We can do the same things. We can make the same mistakes, you know, own up to that shit. And I think it is a lot more powerful than trying to make yourself smarter than what you are. Know who you are, be who you are, and never run away from it.
That's solid advice and a good way to end the show. NokaSuchi, thank you so much for coming on. You're always a joy.
Thank you.
I really appreciate you, and I like what you're doing with your channel.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I think it's coming along. It can get better. I think I can I think I have ways to make it better. And I do want to bring in those rooms again. I miss having the rooms where all y'all could come in and just whatever you want to talk about, let's talk. So I want to start doing that again a bit more.
Right on. Well, thanks for your time, brother. I really appreciate you. I don't kick people out, but I'm going to let you kick yourself out so you're comfortable. You said what you wanted. So find that little red dot at the bottom of the StreamYard screen. Hit that red dot with the white X whenever you like.
All right,
Everyone who showed up.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for having me on. I am going to dip out, check on my daughter, and start dinner. So I do appreciate you having me on, Richard.
Peace and respect, Noka. Welcome anytime, bro.
Yeah, have a good one, man.
Have a good one. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed that. I know I did. I think we're going to be doing some more of those as he has time, which he doesn't have a lot of time. But as Noka has time, I want to do more of those kinds of interviews with people and really dig into where they stand and ask some more deep introspective questions of people. I really want to start doing more of that. I think these things are important. Thanks again, Noka. Thanks for showing up, Mr. Shadow Kitty, Geo Sam, being mindful, Mind Onion, this one guy, a little bit late, but this one guy, and a few others, Tony Designs. Thank you all very much. Peace and respect to you all. I truly do look forward to the day that we're all great friends. We'll see you next time.